Number 12 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. Pursuant to the order of reference of November 19th, 2020, the committee is meeting on its study of the pre-budget consultations in advance to the 2021 budget. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of September 23rd of this year. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website, so you are aware the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. And I would just caution witnesses and members that when you're not speaking, to put your system on mute. It makes it a lot clearer for those doing the translation services.
Point of order, I'm just curious, my apologies.
Yeah,
Will
go
we
ahead.
be going, even though we started so late, is it going to be possible to do the entire meeting?
Yes, we've got to stop about, Ms. Jensen, we got to stop about 6:30 my time, 7:30 yours, or 7:30 Ottawa. So we will have an hour with each panel roughly.
Thank you.
Okay. Did the ones who are missing show up yet, Madam Clerk?
No, I
Mr.
do not
Julian
see them.
or
I'll
Mr.
just
Polyev?
send the email again.
Okay. I'd just like them to hear the witnesses for sure. Just to give committee members a heads up while we're waiting in the first round of questions, it'll be Mr. Kelly first for the Conservatives, then Mr. McLeod, the 6-minute rounds, Mr. St. Marie and Mr. Julian. Maybe because we are tight in time, we'd better start. All the witnesses today, I believe, have sent briefs. I'm pretty sure I've seen briefs from all the witnesses. It might be one not. So, okay, to start with, then we will start with the Canadian Association of Oil Well Drilling Contractors, Mr. Schultz, President and CEO. And if I haven't got your name quite right, just tell me. Go ahead.
No problem, Mr. Chair. Great. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to address the committee today. You know, the world is changing so quickly that it's hard to keep track. Innovations in drilling and fracking have taken the world from a potential oil and gas shortage a generation ago to more oil and gas than we can use. We have gone from the federal government subsidizing the oil sands just a little over 20 years ago to incentivize the reduction of oil consumption and to limit the expansion of the oil sands. Because of the impacts of climate change, the New World goal is net zero carbon emissions by 2050. But we also need to ensure that energy is still affordable and available, and that we keep Canadians working through this energy transition. The only way these twin goals can be achieved is the responsible production of Canadian oil and natural gas, along with technological advances like carbon capture utilization and storage, hydrogen production, geothermal, and other technologies that lower Canada's emissions while keeping energy affordable and workers on the job. In other words, if this is really a transition, we say bring it on. We've been evolving and changing and transitioning for over 70 years. Just set some fair rules, be consistent, put us on a level playing field, and we'll do the rest. We also have children and grandchildren. We want to make the world and their world a better place for them as well. Now, as Canadians bundle up and prepare for the coming winter months, hardworking Canadian rig crews keep our homes warm and make that hot chocolate possible this holiday season. Canadians are proud of their natural resource industries and support responsible development. With our world-class standards, Canada has an opportunity to play a significant role in shaping the world's energy future. And it's our people, equipment, technology, and processes that will pave the way to a cleaner, lower carbon energy future. Now, although renewables such as wind and solar will increase significantly over time, they will not replace fossil fuels in many energy-intensive applications. And so as we move toward cleaner solutions, natural gas will continue to grow and eventually dominate the world's energy supply. Canada's abundant natural gas reserves, combined with our technology and geographic location to develop and deliver it at the world's lowest carbon profile, are a huge competitive advantage for our country. Hydrogen and geothermal will also play an important role in our energy future. We have seen several rigs complete geothermal wells in Saskatchewan and Alberta to produce clean and renewable electricity. The possibilities for these new industries are encouraging and exciting for the entire country. And it's our people and businesses within the oil and gas services industry that will help move these new energy opportunities forward. But I'm afraid many Canadian drilling and service contractors are struggling to survive right now. And without the Canadian energy services sector, Canada's ambitious carbon reduction targets cannot and will not be achieved. After a promising start, 2020 activity levels came to a crashing halt at the end of Q1, along with the global economy due to COVID-19. The industry faced historic lows in drilling activity with as few as 6 drilling rigs working in June in all of Canada. 2020 was not only the worst year on record, it was an extension of the prolonged downturn in Canada's oil and gas industry. This should alarm policymakers in our country. If we sincerely want to address climate change and embrace new energy sources like hydrogen, geothermal, and carbon capture utilization and storage, if Canadian drilling and service contractors are not available, Canada's ambitious and realistic climate objectives are not feasible. Post-COVID, an opportunity for Canadian energy will present itself once again. We have the world's premier energy brand, the most ethically sourced, responsibly produced, cleanest hydrocarbon-based energy available in a world that will need our products for decades to come. Mr. Chair, thank you for the committee's time, and I look forward to answering questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schultz. A lot of information packed in that 4-minute presentation. Thank you very much. City of Yellowknife, Ms. Alty, the mayor.
Merci beaucoup. Au nom de la ville de Yellowknife, je vous remercie de me.
I thank you for giving me an opportunity for making a presentation today. I am Rebecca Alty, and I am the mayor of Yellowknife. For 2020, we have 5 recommendations, but we've now added 2 more.
Number 1, protect essential municipal services and the municipal role in recovery by proactively working with provinces, territories, and municipalities on successor arrangements to the Safe Restart Agreement, which must include funding support for municipal operations through 2021. Number 2, double the gas tax funding allocation for the next 3 years through a new investment, the Municipal Economic Recovery Fund, to rapidly deliver infrastructure stimulus funding and job growth for Canadians. Beyond restarting the Canadian economy as it recovers from the COVID-19 pandemic, this funding will also address the crumbling essential infrastructure in communities. Number 3, implement the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action number 21 by providing sustainable funding for existing and new Aboriginal healing centres to address the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual harms caused by residential schools, and to ensure that the funding of healing centres in Nunavut and the Northwest Territories are a priority. Number 4, quickly scale up the Rapid Housing Initiative, RHI, by allocating $7 billion for no less than 24,000 additional supportive and deeply affordable housing units over the national strategy's 7 remaining years. With 3,000 units committed through the existing RHI, this is a path to achieving the goal of ending chronic homelessness, currently experienced by at least 27,000 Canadians. Keys to success: maintain the RHI's efficient delivery model, including a direct allocation to cities, and support stick-built construction, as well as acquisition and modular housing opportunities. Number 5, address the backlog of land claim and self-government negotiations with Indigenous governments by increasing the staffing levels of federal negotiators. Number 6, fund the implementation of Canada's Arctic and Northern Policy Framework. And not last but least, number 7, make the investments necessary to significantly reduce the northern infrastructure gap to address the transportation, connectivity, energy, and climate-based challenges Northerners face. Notre soumission contient plus de détails sur toutes nos recommandations.
Our submission contains more details, and I will be glad to complement this after this meeting. But for now, I would like to elaborate on number 1 and 2 as to municipal support.
In a year like none other. I would like to thank you all for your hard work and support this year. In particular, the city is incredibly grateful for the financial support through the increased Reaching Home funding and the Safe Restart funding. This past Monday, our council passed our 2021 budget. Due to COVID and the necessary health protocols that we need to have in place, we are facing rising costs against falling revenues, and we have no ability to run deficits. Unlike the federal government, we need to pass a balanced budget while still providing core services like clean drinking water, proper sewage and waste disposal, fire and ambulance, and many more vital services that are in the midst of a pandemic. To do this, while not causing a massive spike in taxes, requires support from the federal government. The pandemic is not over, and the financial impact on municipal services will continue in 2021. To ensure that residents continue to receive vital services without causing them undue hardship, we recommend that the upcoming federal budget include funding for successor arrangements to the Safe Restart program, again, including support for municipal operations. We also recommend an increase in gas tax funding to communities. And as the Government of Canada noted in their last budget, investing in communities can deliver good middle-class jobs today while setting the stage for economic, social, and environmental returns for years to come. We encourage you to keep this in mind while drafting, reviewing, and approving the upcoming budget. As mentioned, we appreciate the federal government's Reaching Home funding, and fingers crossed that we'll also receive some rapid housing funding in Yellowknife. But this funding is not even addressing the tip of the iceberg. In Yellowknife and across the north, we have many adults, families, and youth who are homeless or at risk of being homeless. Whether it's COVID or the temperatures that dip to -30 and below for many months of the year, housing isn't a nice to have. It's essential and a human right. We urge the federal government to increase their investments for both programs and work with communities to overcome federal policy obstacles that prevent us all from reaching our desired outcome, which is ensuring all residents have a safe place to call home. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and also thank you for your brief. From the Electric Mobility Canada, Daniel Breton, President and CEO. Mr. Breton.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Breton. I'm President and Chief Operating Officer of Electric Mobility of Canada. I'd like to thank the members of the Standing Committee on Finance for having me here today.
One of the very first organizations dedicated to electric mobility in the world, representing more than 220 corporate members. They include vehicle manufacturers, electricity providers, charging infrastructure manufacturers, technology companies, mining companies, charging system providers, fleet managers, union, cities, universities, NGOs, and more. As we will see an exponential growth of light and heavy-duty electric vehicles on the road in Canada and everywhere in the world, and as Canadian government is working on a green recovery plan, there is one very important question that needs to be addressed. Will Canada show leadership in the fight against climate change and air pollution to create jobs in the high-tech sector of electric mobility? Or will Canadians end up simply importing electric vehicles, batteries, and technologies, and therefore miss the boat on high-quality jobs? That's why EMC is making these 10 key recommendations for the 2021 budget. Here are some of these recommendations. Support Canada's zero-emission vehicle manufacturing by supporting consumers and purchase of EVs for all vehicle classes, from cars to buses, from school buses to trucks. For passenger vehicles, we recommend to maintain the current $5,000 federal rebate and get more Canadians in zero-emission vehicles by increasing the base MSRP cutoff for pickup trucks and SUVs, minivans, since they have a higher MSRP than smaller vehicles, whether they're gas or electric. This will help increase regional equity, and access for people who do need larger vehicles. For low-speed, off-road, and micro-electric vehicles, we recommend a $2,000 and up to $2,000 rebate, especially since some of these vehicles are built in Canada. Offer a cash for clunker incentive focused on EV transition by getting people from used gas vehicle to EVs. Implement a G and HST exemption for both new and used zero-emission vehicle to increase access to the benefits of driving electric. Incentivize all Canadians to buy an electric vehicle with a used zero-emission vehicle incentive of up to $2,000. We also recommend a federal ZEV standard in line with Canada's ZEV targets and align with California, BC, Quebec, and other jurisdictions around the world. We also recommend a ZEV standard for heavy-duty vehicles inspired by the new California regulation to help achieve Canada's Drive to Zero pledge. Nous recommandons d'élargir les objectifs du programme d'infrastructure.
We are recommending that we broaden objectives of the zero-emission vehicle infrastructure program and for the initiative to deploy infrastructure for electrical vehicles so that we will help remote and rural regions. We are recommending that we set objectives to encourage 100% purchases of government fleet vehicles, and this starting in fiscal year 2023, everywhere if possible, and to ensure that Crown corporations are eligible for the same programs that support the adoption and deployment of stations, just as private businesses.
To take advantage of economies of scale and create manufacturing jobs in Canada. We recommend expand the funding for ZEV training programs for consumers, but especially for workers who are looking to work in a company with positive prospect in the future. Many Canadian companies are looking for workers in electric mobility.
As a Canadian NGO dedicated to the electrification of transportation, our organization could use the support of the Canadian to help it in its mission. In exchange, we would bring our expertise and our experience to the table. We're now part of an industrial coalition aimed at setting up a supply chain for the ZEV industry and right from BC to the Maritimes. We want to ensure that Canada is in a good position for the rapid transition to ZEV. This initiative would bring together many major stakeholders, right from the mining sector to mobility, from R&D to marketing, bringing together all the infrastructures, and we're impatient to share our work with you. We'd like to remind the committee that heavy and light vehicles contribute to climate change and air pollution. That air pollution causes 14,600 deaths per year, and that the economic impact of air pollution represents $114 billion per year, and that electric vehicles have a significant impact on the reduction of our greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution. You can find more information about our recommendations in our brief. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Breton, and also thank you for your submission earlier. Then the last witness on this panel, Explorers and Producers Association of Canada, Mr. Goodman, President. Mr. Goodman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Tristan Goodman, President of the Explorers and Producers Association of Canada, or EPAC. Thank you for the chance to speak to the committee members today, and I hope you are all safe during this difficult period. EPAC represents over 100 owned natural gas and oil producing companies focused on drilling rather than mining Canada's energy resources. Our members employ tens of thousands of Canadians across the country and represent over $100 billion in market assets here in Canada. We recognize Canadians' expectations of our industry to continue to make progress on reducing GHG emissions, ensuring we support our Indigenous partners through contributing to economic reconciliation and responsibly underpinning Canada's future economic prosperity, all during a time of changes in global energy use. Although important changes have been made and continue to be needed, we believe that a cleaner oil and gas sector can aid in driving the country's economic recovery. We are a large contributor to the Canadian economy, as well as producing some of Canada's most valuable exports that ensures a responsible balance of trade for our nation. Petroleum products remain our country's #1 export, representing close to 15% of Canada's total exports. Current global health pandemic has created challenges for all industries, and especially so for Canada's oil and gas sector, as prices for our products are far lower than demand dictates under regular world economic conditions. While prices have started to recover, we continue to face challenges that will have ramifications well beyond our industry as the economy moves to repatriate manufacturing of such items as PPE, create the materials used to make electric vehicles, as well as long-term production of made in Canada solutions to lithium, helium, hydrogen, LNG, and other elements in a changing economy. Canadian oil and gas producers are world leaders in the evolving ESG space and have demonstrated our commitment to contribute to economic reconciliation with our Indigenous partners and more broadly with Indigenous nations. We acknowledge that our industry has made mistakes, not evolved quickly enough at times, and needs to do more. Being Canadian means we are here for the long term. We commit to continually improving our performance while ensuring the essential need in Canada for oil and gas comes from this country rather than poorly regulated foreign entities. We would like to thank the federal government, the official opposition, the provincial governments for their support. Key areas of success to date include projects such as the Keystone and TMX pipeline, the British Columbia LNG Canadian development, worker support programs through EDC, BDC liquidity actions, the emissions reduction fund, and job creation activities to remediate work sites. EPAC and its members have the technology and innovation expertise to add remarkable value during a period of great transformation. We want to work with all levels of government as they rebuild Canada's economy while implementing the federal government's UNDRIP legislation, climate change policies, and resolving issues around market access. There are many opportunities that can be discussed and implemented, including a number that I have detailed in my written submission. In particular, I would like to draw your attention to the following top-line recommendations: supporting the deployment of carbon capture and utilization and storage, ensuring financial liquidity, seizing the opportunity of liquefied natural gas, expanding the orphan well program, getting the clean fuel standards right, and continued support for market access and development. Thank you again for letting me have the opportunity to address you as you continue your important work. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goodman. You said expanding some word from well program. I didn't catch that word. If you could give it to me.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. It was expanding the orphan well program.
Orphan well, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that's what it was. Thank you very much. All right, then we'll go to first round will be 6 minutes, and we will start with Mr. Kelly, followed by Mr. McLeod. Mr. Kelly.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our presenters. So, Mr. Scholes, 6, that is a staggering well count for a month. Could you put that in perspective and tell us how that June well count compares to averages long term, or even over last year, or any other comparison you might give us for perspective?
Certainly. Thanks for the question. I remember quite vividly sitting in my office in the middle of June, and I get a daily rig report, which gives me a bit of a synopsis of where the rigs are working across Western Canada as well as the offshore side of the business. And, it was quite scary. There were 6 rigs in all of Western Canada, a couple, 3 in Alberta, none in Saskatchewan, and a couple in British Columbia. To give you an idea of what we would be in a normal year, it would be in and around 100 rigs. And, between, in the June area, we would be starting to ramp up for our summer programs and beginning to ramp up further into the fall. But there were, out of that 6, there were only 2 companies out of Canada's 24 drilling contractors operating in June. And okay, what was even more startling is the fact that even in the March of June, 75% of Canada's drilling rig contractors hadn't spun a wheel since March.
Okay,
so it's a very serious situation.
Yeah, that's staggering. How many rigs have left Canada for the United States since 2015?
Well, the most important stat to really highlight is how many of our high spec drilling rigs have left. And we estimate about 28 of our most sophisticated drilling rigs have left Canada for destinations like the Permian, the Eagle Ford, and other U.S. destinations.
Okay. So it's fair to say that the policies of this government have been entirely unfavorable to Canadian investment, but have been advantageous to investments in oil and gas in other jurisdictions.
What I would say is this is a global business. We try to incentivize capital to come into Canada from all across the world, and capital is going to go to destinations that have the greatest return for investment.
Okay. So the investment opportunities have not, since 2015, have been in oil producing jurisdictions outside of Canada.
What I would say is when you look around the world, the Canadian basin has not performed as well as the U.S. basin nor other international basins. That would be correct.
Now, in terms of reducing emissions, and is it fair to say then that that carbon leakage is a significant factor in the policies that have, in other words, when activity merely moves from one jurisdiction to another, we are not reducing or contributing to a reduction in global GHGs, but merely punishing the Canadian economy?
Well, I would add to that, and I would say that because we don't have as much investment in Canada, let's be very frank, Canadians are the innovators when it comes to a lot of this technology that is going to allow us to reduce emissions. And so when you look at things like biofuel technology, where we can use natural gas as well as diesel in our engines, highline electrification of our rigs, where we actually have no emissions whatsoever in terms of scope 1 emissions, we can power our rigs directly from high lines of the electricity grid. And the other example I would give you, Canadian downhole technology, in terms of how we've been so productive in drilling efficiencies and optimization. There are generally wells 10, 15, 20 years ago would take 40 days to drill. We're drilling them in 10 days now. And so when you look at it from the basis of emissions, that's a 75% reduction in overall emissions. That's Canadian technology that we want to build right here in our country.
Yeah, what a fantastic good news story. But if Canadian technology is part of the solution to a better efficiency and reduction in emissions, but investment is being chased to other jurisdictions, that's not going to help us achieve any kind of goal or support our economy. Only a few moments left. I'll maybe just throw it to Mr. Goodman then to get him in, and if he wants to comment on the clean fuel standard and the implications for both consumers and industry, and I'll throw it to you then, sir, for that final question.
Sure, I can quickly answer that as the chair moves us on here. I think there are certainly opportunities within the clean fuel standards. There's a large debate that is going to continue around the clean fuel standards. What I can say is that a lot of the innovation that Mr. Schultz was talking about has great application within that. There is debate as to the impact on Canadians from a disposable income perspective, but there's no question that there will be some changes coming up, both some opportunities from an oil and gas perspective, as well as some challenges on the implementation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for that round. Then turning to Mr. McLeod, 6 minutes. Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the presenters here today. Very, very interesting discussion. And I'd like to say welcome to Mary Alty from Yellowknife. It's good to have somebody from the north in the mix once in a while. I listened closely to your recommendations. the recommendation on the gas tax. In budget 2019, our government did do a one-time doubling of the gas tax transfer, and I wanted to know if you could tell us, how did that help Yellowknife, and would a similar top-up in budget 2021 assist with the city's infrastructure plans?
For sure, and thanks for the question. Yes, and we definitely grateful for that top up. We've got a lot coming up in our capital plan, and it's not those sexy projects that all taxpayers love to talk about. It's our sewage lagoon, it's sludge removal, it's waste management, and they're not cheap projects. So when you talk about creating a new cell that's required at our dump or our solid waste facility, in 2023, that's a $4.5 million project for a town of 20,000, a city of 20,000. So it's significant infrastructure that we've got to keep up to. And there's also our water submarine line, which is to ensure that we have clean drinking water. We have a giant mine, one of a toxic legacy that the federal government's cleaning up right now. So we actually have to draw our water from further up the lake, which isn't as close to our water treatment plant. Replacing that submarine line is a $9 million project. And this is just on the heels of all these other big projects. So we're talking in the next 10 years about $19 to $45 million a year in capital projects.
Wow. Okay, yeah, thank you for that. And I really appreciate hearing somebody recommend that the resources should be ramped up for the federal government side of Indigenous land claims and negotiations for self-government, and maybe even adding to that as the need for a recognition of rights framework. I think Yellowknife is really in a landlocked situation with being surrounded by land claims on all sides, and it would really help if we could move that forward. So that's good to hear. Hopefully people are listening. I did want to ask about does the city of Yellowknife envision having the call to action number 21 met that you mentioned? Is it through a larger central healing center, or several smaller facilities throughout the north, or on land program in communities, or a combination of all these? What is the vision that your city is thinking?
I would say the discussion that happens in the north is that there's multiple throughout. Here in Yellowknife, we have had the Arctic Indigenous Wellness Foundation that recently began. It's now in its third or fourth year and has great success, but it has no core funding. And so it's really important. Mental health and addictions are huge costs to the healthcare system, which the federal government is supporting through NHIB. So it's really a cost of whether you're going to be paying for the ramifications of not dealing with the mental health and addictions, or if you want to be preventative and to try to resolve these issues before they become hospitalizations, criminal justice issues. So I think it's important that the TRC recommendation number 21 is addressed. It's going to go up on its 6th year of being released, and it's definitely needed here in the Northwest Territories.
Okay, I don't know how much time I got left, but I wanted to ask you a final question on Rapid Housing Initiative that you mentioned. And I know many organizations in the Northwest Territories are interested in accessing the Rapid Housing Initiative. Could you tell the committee how the city of Yellowknife has considered using and accessing these funds? And if there's any recommendations you have on improving the program? I just got a call today from the Satu. They're saying extend some of the time frames. They're tight. We have winter road schedules and everything else. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
For sure. The city of Yellowknife, we're working, we've got 4 different ideas that we're looking to pursue. 2 of them include motel transformations into single-use apartments. The other one is an old office building that's now vacant. It's 10 stories that could be transformed into residential. And then there's a federal asset. There's a 36-unit apartment building that the federal government has empty here in Yellowknife, and we are hoping that it can be transformed into supportive housing because the market rental in Yellowknife is sufficient for federal employees. So that's just what the city of Yellowknife has. The YWCA also has a project that they're looking to expand on, and there's a few more NGOs. The timeline is incredibly tight. I recognize that the idea is to get the money out the door. However, we're all in the midst of a pandemic trying to keep our heads above water. So trying to do our regular jobs and apply for this funding, not to kick the gift horse in the mouth, but it's a challenge. So getting the funding applications in and then the timelines to actually get it done here in the north. Yellowknife's lucky in that we do have road access, but for a community like Paulatuk, which is up in the Arctic Ocean, finding out that you get funding in March it means that they can't do their project till summer 2022, which by then has already blown the Rapid Housing Initiative's deadline. So really recognizing that not all communities have road access. And even for those of us with road access, just being able to have enough human power to get these projects done, because even when you have a modular, it comes and it has to be established or set up on the ground. So you still do need those trades folks. So again, it's great. We really need housing support here in the north, but the program hasn't been designed to necessarily lead to success because we're also small organizations. One of the next speakers, he's from the community of Lutzelke. They've got a tiny government staff, so they don't have people on staff to be able to fill out these complicated.
We will have to leave it at that. I think you're clearly making the message, sending the message, get the decisions done well ahead of construction season. We have the same time in what you would call, same problem in what you would call the south. Turning then to Gabriel St. Marie, 6 minutes, and I believe you're in the room in Ottawa, Mr. St. Marie, followed by Mr. Julian.
Oui, merci Wayne. Donc, je tiens d'abord.
Yes, thank you, Wayne. First of all, I'd like to say hello to all our witnesses, and I would like to thank the mayor of Yellowknife for saying a few words in French. That said, why should we increase the maximum for electric vehicles? Monsieur Sainte-Marie, the answer is very simple. The way the reductions have been conceived mean that only cars are available for the federal reduction in price. Since there are a lot of people needing SUVs or pickup trucks for work or for pleasure, the price of these vehicles makes them unavailable for the federal government because they're higher in price. So the idea of raising the maximum for electrical pickup trucks or SUVs would lead to a certain amount of equity for citizens who might need them. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. And I represent Joliette, and there are people who have small trucks or who need to be able to tow another car with their trucks, and right now that's almost impossible at the present time.
General Way, in your statement, could you please talk about the economic cost of pollution to Canada? Yes. Health Canada published a report a year ago, day to date, on the economic costs of air pollution. It's estimated that it was about $114 billion per year. This is an astronomical figure. The people don't realize to what extent air pollution has a significant impact on their health. And more than 50% of the carbon emissions of NOx come from the transportation sector. And of that, if you look at the linkage between transportation, that is light pickups and trucks, depending on what category, if we can decrease air pollution, by transitioning to heavy and light electro vehicles, that would be wonderful, and it would create jobs because we have quite a few manufacturers here in Canada that produce that. Ford and Chrysler in Ontario, for instance, and there's already some manufacturing done in BC and Quebec. There's Robus, Desjardins, and Lyon. So they're all companies that focus on this. So it's good from an economical point of view, but also will be reducing air pollution, and that's very, very important. Mr. Saint-Marie, yes, thank you very much. I was having some problems with my mic button. Here, I'm sorry about that. So you were saying that this $114 billion that was published by Health Canada, you said that people will get sick, they'll have complications. That's the additional cost, that is additional stress put on our healthcare system. For example, people on Saint-Joseph Street in Montreal who breathe in the traffic pollution, they develop problems. $114 billion is quite impressive. In Quebec, there is a zero-emission law. If Canada were to inspire itself and base itself on such a law and adopt a zero-emission legislation, if we were to make a commitment to have this by 2030, what do you think this will have? What kind of impact will this have on jobs and on the economy in Canada? Thank you. In a report of there's some calculations that have been done. If Canada were to base itself on BC, because they have a zero emission legislation in BC, in California and in Quebec as well, the calculation for the increase in revenue for places such as SaskPower, BC Hydro, that sell electricity sellers, there's infrastructure, there's charging stations. We're talking about 200,000 extra jobs. And in terms of revenue, we're talking about $110 billion that's just related to transportation. So we're making a shift towards electrification. It's not just about buying electric vehicles, but when we're talking about the economy, we're looking at this coalition that I alluded to. When you have electric vehicles, this also has an impact on mines and other sectors throughout Canada, construction. That means we're creating a whole new niche, a whole new specialty where Canadians can play leadership roles. And so we have research centers in Dalhousie and elsewhere in Quebec. There's Karim-Zaïb. There's another research center in other provinces. So there's a lot of assets that Canada has. We have the intelligence, we have the primary resources, we have the universities. So we're talking about creating a new economic sector where Canada could play a leadership role. Merci.
Before I turn to Mr. Julian in the next round, it'll be a split between Mr. Falk and Mr. Polyev. Mr. Julian, you get the floor.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today, and we certainly hope that you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy during this pandemic. Mayor Alte, I'd like to start with you. You've confirmed previous testimony that we've heard from people like Mayor Cote from the City of New Westminster and Mayor Hurley from the City of Burnaby about the overall impact on municipal services during this pandemic, and thank you for that. I'd like to ask you three questions specifically about the housing issue, because that is an issue that is top of mind here in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia. We are simply seeing an increase in homelessness as the pandemic worsens many of the socioeconomic conditions that existed prior to. You mentioned that there was a federal government-owned building with 36 units that I understand is empty. I'd be interested in knowing how long that federal building has been empty for, because obviously 36 units is a considerable start in terms of addressing housing. You've talked about a substantial increase in funding, and I couldn't agree with you more. $7 billion seems to be a very important first start. And the Rapid Housing Initiative doesn't meet in any way the huge demand of hundreds of thousands of families across the country. So what has been the impact of the lack of housing in Yellowknife now? And what would be the impact if we were talking about a 10 or 15 or even a $20 billion program that put shovels in the ground and started building affordable housing across the country? I raise that because in British Columbia, as you're probably aware, the BC government has built more housing than every other jurisdiction put together, including the federal government, by simply moving to putting in place modular housing to make sure that affordable housing units are purchased and put into place. So what would be the impact of the federal government really stepping up and investing double figures in billions of dollars to ensure that housing was available for everybody who needs it?
Thank you for the questions. So yes, it's called Aspen Apartments, and it's a 36-unit apartment building. It's been empty since 2019. They were looking to transfer it to a local NGO, but the way that the transfer program works, the NGO was going to have to put $4.5 million on their books as a liability. And for the NGO, that just wasn't an option because it was going to impact their borrowing limits. So it didn't go through, and then COVID hit. And so the federal government did transfer the asset to the territorial government to use right now. So March 2020 till the following March. But following that, our request is that the federal government look to transfer it to a local NGO again, and to not go back to use it as federal employee housing, because our private market here is sufficient and federal employees make enough to rent on the private market. In regards to homelessness and the need for both affordable housing as well as supportive housing, COVID's really seen with, we were in a lockdown, and nobody outside of your house was supposed to be living or visiting you and stuff. So a lot of hidden homeless really became obvious as people weren't welcome to come and couch surf and stay with friends and relatives. And so then there's that increase in the shelter space that's required. The worry is that if community transmission did happen in Yellowknife, like Nunavut, where with Arviat, it's households of 10 plus people, all of a sudden the numbers skyrocket in just a matter of days. So it's really important. And it's tough to get those numbers because hidden homelessness and couch surfing and the dangers that come with that, the fact you're putting yourself in vulnerable situations. So the housing is really important, and we've got 15 families on the wait list to get housing, and that means that kids aren't being able to get a good education and that stability that they need to be good contributors to the economy in the future. So across the country, I think we all know.
Last question,
Thank you very much. Mais j'aimerais poser une question à Monsieur.
I'd like to ask Mr. Breton a question. I'm happy to see you again. I have a question about countries that have been really successful in converting to electric vehicles. For example, Norway, where more than half of all new cars purchased are electric. What lessons can we learn from these countries that have been so successful in making the transition? Thank you, Mr. Julian, for your question. I'm very happy to see you too. The countries that have been leaders in the world have set up the parameters to promote the purchase of electro vehicles. They've offered rebates in purchasing electric cars. They have set up charging stations everywhere, and they have discouraged people from buying polluting cars. In Norway, they're very strict. When people want to buy a polluting car, they have to pay a tax that is 150% of the cost of the vehicle. That would never happen in North America. But We can look at the Californian regulations. They've had this now for 30 years, and California has become the North American leader when it comes to electrical vehicles. So regulations, education is also very important. We have to explain to people how these vehicles work. There's a lot of disinformation out there. People have all kinds of prejudices against electric vehicles. I live on an island, rural area, and I have no trouble going to the Gaspé, Toronto, or elsewhere. It's doable today, and technology is evolving very, very quickly.
Following Mr. Falk and Mr. Polyev will be Ms. Zerowitz and Fragiskatis on a split. Mr. Falk.
Thank you, Mr. Easter, and I want to thank all the panelists for their presentations here at committee today. It's been very interesting. It's always a joy to learn something new. Mr. Goodman, I'd like to start by asking you a question. You talked in your presentation, and you also mentioned in your brief about abandoned and orphaned wells. Your brief references the $1.72 billion that the industry received from the government to address some of those wells, but that there's a $70 billion gap still that exists in addressing the need to reclaim or close those wells. Who's responsible for doing that?
Thank you very much. The industry is responsible for doing that, and we take ownership over that. We do appreciate the federal government's program to get Canadian workers back to work, and I think there were some good decisions there on the part of the federal government to move forward on that. Thank you.
Okay, good. And so that gap now between the almost $2 billion that you have and the $70 billion that's estimated still required. Any ideas on where that's going to come from or how we could address that? Because I actually see, like you've already mentioned in your last answer, is that this is actually a job creation thing in addition to being environmentally responsible and being good stewards.
Yes. So, I mean, first, the numbers are actually quite difficult to work out. So whether it's $70 billion less or it really doesn't matter. So I'm not going to specify what the number is there because actually it really depends on how you look at it. I can say the industry has put extra effort to this. I think they've recognized that investors are actually expecting them to do that. Canadians are expecting them to do that. And there's a broad commitment to do that. I can say also that the provincial governments, the way they've moved in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and in Alberta recently is to put in place new policies, new procedures, whether those be timelines or percentage of spend targets. Those are appropriate policies, particularly at a time right now when prices are difficult. And as prices recover, there should be more money and more effort put towards that. And that is a commitment by the industry.
Okay, and so does the industry actually have a pool of funds that they have? Is it something that somebody administers for them, or does the association look after it, or is it individual companies and well owners that need to make that provision?
So it's a bit of both. So how it generally works is generally there's two forms to any of these programs. Policies will take different forms, but it's relatively simple. It's on basically just like your household income. What is your assets that are coming in? What are your liabilities associated with that? That's called an asset to liability ratio. And then the industry backstops with their money, and it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Any company that is financially distressed and is not able to deal with their liabilities goes into what they call an orphan fund, and the industry then pays for that. And they all are administered slightly differently, but they all have the same basic process there. And I should mention, as a former energy regulator, I have quite a lot of expertise on the implementation of these programs.
Thank you both. We'll switch over to Mr. Polyev. We may be back to you, Mr. Falk. I don't see Pierre. Pierre, you there? Mr. Falk?
Yes,
there
I am.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I have here the global demand for oil for 2019. Now, this is obviously pre-COVID, but it was 100 million barrels per day. And that was an increase from the preceding 5 years, which runs in a contradiction to the common misconception that oil is now a thing of the past. In fact, the International Energy Agency anticipates continued demand of at least 60 million barrels per day for decades to come. So again, oil will be produced. The question is by whom? In North America, while our industry has been decimated in Canada for the last 5 years, it has doubled, production has doubled south of the border. So we're seeing more money, more jobs go to less environmentally friendly sectors south of the border while we decimate ourselves. Would either of the oil and gas witnesses be willing to comment on what we're doing to our own national economic interests by driving oil and gas production out of our country to less environmentally friendly jurisdictions?
We'll take the
I can
time to
certainly
go to
comment
both.
on that,
Okay.
but perhaps I'll ask Mr. Schultz if he would like to go first, if that's okay.
The interpreter would ask the witness to hold up the inline microphone, please.
Yeah, great. So, I would agree. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what forecast you're looking at, although they are, some of them are quite different than one another's depending on different stated policies. But the reality is the world's going to consume more energy. As Canadians, I know that we're committed to looking at climate change very seriously. But the reality is if we harm the industry, i.e. the oil and gas industry, and the service sector that is embedded in that industry, we will not be able to develop into hydrogen, geothermal, have a robust petrochemical industry, and also to deal with our growing energy demands here as a country. So we have to be very pragmatic about our approach and ensuring that our existing industries in the oil and gas industry are sustainable in the long term to not only supply Canadians with these products, but also internationally. We can either get it from Canada or you can get it from the Saudis or the Iranians. And I think most Canadians would choose Canadian product.
Okay, yeah. Mr. Goodman, if you could in 30 seconds.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Mr. Poilievre, thank you for the question and nice to see you again. The International Energy Agency that you referenced is the gold standard. It predicts that you will see an increase in all energy use, including renewables, by the way, of which a number of previous oil and gas companies are starting to enter. I think there's great opportunity in the future for Canadians across the whole energy space. It's not a one versus the other. I do think, though, we have to ensure foreign capital is coming into Canada so that we can invest in all types of energy sources. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Split between Ms. Sirowitz and Mr. Fragaskatis. Ms. Sirowitz, you're up first.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank everyone genuinely for excellent and important presentations. Because I only have 2.5 minutes, I can only ask one of you questions. And unfortunately, because Mr. Julian actually asked the same questions that I was going to ask on electric vehicles to Mr. Breton, I'm going to actually turn my attention to Mr. Schultz. Mr. Schultz, in the 6 minutes that Mr. Kelly asked you questions and basically blamed only Liberal policy over the last 6 years for what's happening in the oil sector, I actually did a quick search just to show that a lot of foreign investment is fleeing the oil sands in Canada because it is high cost, it is high carbon. Not only is it a high cost jurisdiction, but it's producing lower quality oil. There's regulatory challenges, there is interprovincial issues, there's lack of pipeline capacity, and there's actually also lack of investment in capital from the companies that are actually here. So irrespective of all that, I wanted to ask, I thought that you had made, I think, some very interesting points and I think important points. There is a transition that's happening. We are moving to a low carbon economy. We do want to make sure that there is a transition to renewable energy and clean technology and clean energy. And one of the things you had said is that, tell us what are the rules of engagement moving forward. And I felt that was a fair ask. And so I wouldn't mind if you could elaborate exactly what you feel is not clear right now in terms of rules of engagement moving forward.
Well, I mean, I think there's just a lot of unknowns right now. I mean, I think we have seen, just to give you an example of C69, where, when you talk about pipeline infrastructure that's desperately needed and will continue to be needed in Canada, I just have to look at Chris Bloomer, the president and CEO of the Canadian Energy Pipeline Association, that had mentioned that basically he and his association don't really see a proponent that would be willing to go through the process under C69 to actually see another pipeline get built here in Canada. So I'm not a pipeline expert. I just, I'm kind of looking at other sources that would indicate to me that the C69 in many ways is broken from an industry perspective. And I think the industry worked really hard with trying to provide some amendments that would make it workable. We weren't successful in that. So I do think that C69 is still problematic. There's still a lot of unknowns with the clean fuel standards and how that's going to be ultimately implemented. And so I think at the end of the day, when I say we want some certainty as to what the goalposts look like, it really means, what is the regulatory framework that we're going to be operating in? And for industry and government to really work hand in hand to ensure that, when we have these objectives, have these emission objectives, that we're not, we're not kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, so to speak, that we're actually working with these industries that are ultimately going to help us achieve some of those long-term aspirational goals.
Okay, thank you both, Mr. Fragaskatis.
Thank you, Chair. My question will go to Mayor Alty. Mayor, I'm in Canada's south, all the way down in London, Ontario, but I think that all of us can learn a great deal from the Canadian North, and thank you for your work as mayor. You spoke eloquently in your testimony about the importance of healing centers, not just from a cultural perspective for Indigenous peoples, but also from a healing perspective itself. I have an organization in London that has been quite anxious to have a healing center built in the community here with federal assistance. And I'm just wondering if you can elaborate upon the importance of healing centers. I mean, you talked about it from your perspective as mayor, but I think there's general lessons to take from this.
For sure. One thing that I hear from residents who attend it is that the structure of calling to make a counseling appointment, when you're, you go to your appointment and it's for an hour regardless of what stage you are, you've just disclosed this terrible trauma, and it's like, oh, hour's up, see ya, out the door you go, let's book another appointment. Whereas the Arctic Indigenous Wellness Foundation is there and helps you through that journey of trauma, and it's not that rigid structure that just kind of boots you out the door once your time's up. So it's been incredibly beneficial, and there was a resident who'd been drinking on the streets for many years, and he went to just enjoy tea and something to eat, and there was no pressure to talk. It was just when you have that, when you're ready, you can open up and we'll be there for you. And he never left. He stayed, and he was the security for the camp, and that was his thing that helped him get sober. Then he was able to go to treatment and come back and continue then to work there. The other beneficial thing is really being able to share the traditional knowledge between the elders and the new generation, so that it can be continued for years to come. So many great success stories, and it's just a grassroots organization that currently has no core funding. So it is struggling to continue to operate year after year.
Okay, we will have to end it at that. Just a couple of points of clarification for Mr. Scholz. You said natural gas will continue to grow, and we have the world's lowest carbon profile. Is that data in your original brief, Mr. Scholz? And the second question I have for you as well, if not, can you send it to us? You had mentioned the geothermal wells. I'm quite familiar with the geothermal wells in Iceland. Are we talking much the same thing in Canada, or what are we talking?
So the first point, those statistics actually are from the government of British Columbia, so I can track those down for you, but well sourced, and it basically looks from development all the way to transportation. Canada is by far has the lowest carbon profile, and that's why I think LNG is such a huge opportunity for export for Canada. And then the other question, sorry, in Iceland you were talking about? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
They use geothermal wells in Iceland for everything. is it a similar style? Is this what you're talking, or is it what is it?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not familiar with Iceland. It is a really a budding industry in Canada, and I think what's happening right now is, and we actually were part of a geothermal alliance with a number of environmental groups that's partnering really in trying to see the feasibility of this industry. So we're really at the cutting edge, and I don't think a lot of people necessarily understand what the full potential is going to be, and hence why government support is needed to really start looking at whether or not, in fact, this could be a potential industry, similar to what we've seen, 20 years ago with the oil sands, where, our country saw them as a huge opportunity, a national interest. We can do the same thing with geothermal.
Okay, thank you. No, Iceland has the lowest electrical costs in the world, and it's due to geothermal. With that, and I know we're always in a rush at this committee. With that, I do want to thank the witnesses for very good information. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you forwarding us the briefs in August. And you can forward that little bit extra information. Anybody who has any they want to send, forward it to the clerk, please. With that, thank you very much, and we'll suspend and go to the next panel. Thank you again. Meeting. We will reconvene. Meeting is called to order. Welcome to meeting number 12, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. And we are, as you know, doing the pre-budget consultations for the 2021 budget. I will leave it at that, and we will go right into the statements by witnesses. If you could hold your statements roughly to 5 minutes, it'd be helpful, because we are in quite a tight time frame tonight. Starting then with the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada, Manuel Aranga, Director. Manuel, you've been here many times. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Easter. I'm pleased to be with you today virtually to outline Heart and Stroke's priorities for the 2021 federal budget. First issue I'd like to deal with is pharmacare. Heart and Stroke is seeking concrete steps on the implementation of a national universal pharmacare program. Prior to the pandemic, 7.5 million people in Canada had inadequate or no prescription drug coverage whatsoever. Furthermore, 16% of Canadians went without medication for heart disease, cholesterol, or hypertension because of the cost. Between March and April, roughly 3 million people lost their jobs. Consequently, it is highly likely that many Canadians lost access to their employer-provided drug coverage. Pandemic-related unemployment has disproportionately impacted women, recent immigrants, and racialized persons. Women are often in more precarious work situations, including part-time positions that do not offer drug plans. The pandemic has once again demonstrated that the patchwork of 100 public and 100,000 private drug plans in Canada cannot be relied on when times get tough. Heart and Stroke was pleased to see the commitment to implement a national pharmacare program in the latest speech from the throne and in the fall economic statement. It's also my understanding that the Prime Minister, after today's First Ministers meeting, reiterated this commitment and indicated he is working with the provinces towards the implementation of pharmacare. So we urge consultations with those provinces that are willing so that a preliminary common formulary of essential medicines can be developed, ideally by July 2021, or at the latest by January 2022, as was indicated in the Hoskins report. We also strongly urge for the inclusion of $3.5 billion in funding in budget 2021 to support initial implementation of this work. This figure was also indicated in the Hoskins report. Second issue, as the federal government seeks to identify new ways of generating revenues, Heart and Stroke recommends implementing a licensing fee on tobacco manufacturers, as well as a federal tax on vaping products. A licensing fee could raise $66 million annually and would be a means of ensuring tobacco companies pay their fair share to cover the costs of tobacco control measures and of tobacco-related diseases in Canada. In terms of youth vaping, we all know that a new generation of young people are becoming addicted to nicotine. Research shows that taxation is one of the most powerful levers to prevent vaping uptake amongst young people. BC and Nova Scotia are already taxing vaping products, while provinces like Ontario have called on the federal government to ensure a tax is applied across the country. We're asking that the federal government introduce a minimum 20% value-added tax to be levied on vaping products to make these products less accessible and affordable to youth. Third issue, Canada's health charities continue to seek federal investments to assist in their recovery. The outbreak of the pandemic has resulted in a dramatic increase in demand for health charities services from those living with chronic diseases like heart disease and stroke. At the same time, fundraising revenues have been halved across the sector. While the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy has helped us retain some employees, other measures such as the Community Emergency Community Support Fund have not been truly accessible to Heart and Stroke and many other charities. In November, the Health Charities Coalition of Canada renewed its request for assistance from the federal government. We are collectively seeking $131 million over 2 years to support those living with diseases in Canada, including $28 million to keep up with increased demands for patient support programs and $101 million to protect investments in life-saving research. Finally, last issue, Heart and Stroke is also asking the federal government to renew funding to its federally funded Women's Heart and Brain Health Research Initiative. This initiative is critical because we have significant gaps in women's diagnosis, treatment, and recovery. This is in part due to decades of heart disease and stroke research based solely on men. Budget 2016 included a 5-year, $5 million investment in our Women's Research Initiative. This enabled the funding of 26 research projects across Canada and the creation of a research network connecting over 200 individuals across the country. We are now seeking a renewed and augmented commitment from the federal government to expand this vital work. Finally, we are calling on the federal government to act on its commitments from the 2015 election platform, 2019 federal budget, and several mandate letters to the health minister to implement front-of-package nutrition labeling regulations and restrictions on the marketing of unhealthy foods to kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Turning then to the Indigenous Leadership Institute, Mr. Naita. You're muted there, Steve. There you go.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you for inviting me to present to you today on the budget ask for support for Indigenous leadership in conservation and Indigenous Guardian Initiative. My name is Stephen Nita. I'm a representative of the Indigenous Leadership Initiative, which supports Indigenous nations in honoring our cultural responsibility to care for land and waters, essentially a continuation of life. The Indigenous Leadership Initiative provided a written submission to this committee as part of our pre-budget consultations earlier this year. The Indigenous leadership plays a unique leadership role in advancing Indigenous-led conservation. We directly support dozens of First Nations as they pursue their conservation goals. And we are a leading national voice in building momentum and consensus among scientists, conservation groups, and academics, such as through the Conservation Through Reconciliation.
Mr. Nita, I have to interrupt you for a minute. The clerk or somebody there is going to try and assist you to connect to the right mic. We're having trouble with the sound going through to the translators. So Evelyn or whoever.
Mr. Nita, I am told that you might not have the right microphone selected. If you go to the bottom of your Zoom app, you'll see that there's a microphone with an arrow pointing up. If you click on the arrow, you'll see select a microphone. What does your selection tell you?
Built-in microphone.
I'm sorry?
External microphone. So this is the bud microphone I'm using. Should I try without the bud?
No, I'm told no.
Okay.
Can you hold the microphone closer to your mouth when speaking? Let's see if that makes a difference. Sure, I will do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we try that. You sounded to be coming through a little clearer, closer there, Ms. Nita. Mr. Nita, go ahead.
I have important things to say. I want you to hear me clearly. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
The Indigenous Leadership Initiative is a leading voice in Canada. We are partners with through a 7-year research project called Conservation Through Reconciliation to support Indigenous leadership in conservation and Indigenous guardians. Experts around the world agree biodiversity loss is accelerating at unprecedented rates, and biodiversity loss affects our climate, just as climate change affects our lands and waters. These values exist on Indigenous lands because they are stewarded by Indigenous peoples. We bring unique knowledge and millennia of experience in managing these areas. Canada has recently announced that it will protect 25% of its waters, lands and waters by 2025 and 30% by 2030. As Prime Minister recently acknowledged, Indigenous partnership is essential to achieving these goals. In fact, Canada can only meet these targets by putting Indigenous-led conservation, land use planning, Indigenous protected and conserved areas, and Indigenous stewardship and guardian programs at the very heart of its nature conservation strategy. We are already working together and leading the way in helping Canada achieve its biodiversity conservation targets. The vast majority of new protected areas in recent years have been designed, established, managed by and with Indigenous communities. The Canada Nature Fund, created in 2018, provided important startup funds to this work. But more needs to be done to help achieve Canada's targets in ways that also support reconciliation, new economic futures for our communities, regions, and for climate resiliency. For this reason, ILI, or Indigenous Leadership Initiative, and its partners are recommending that the Government of Canada commit and invest $1.5 billion over 5 years, specifically for Indigenous-led conservation. Indigenous guardians are also an essential piece of this puzzle. Guardians manage IPCAs, or Indigenous Protected and Conserved Areas, monitor development projects from industrial interests in our territories, revitalize cultural practices and values, and are ambassadors on behalf of their nations on the land. They are the eyes and ears for their nations, and their work benefits us all. In part, with support from the 2017 federal pilot program, There are now 70 Indigenous Guardians programs operating in all regions of Canada. The momentum is growing. The Indigenous Leadership Initiative and its partners therefore recommend that the Government of Canada expand funding to support existing and new Guardians. Over the next 5 years, we recommend investments of $831.5 million, ramping up to at least $300 million per year thereafter. This is consistent with the approach in Australia, where successive federal governments have invested in Indigenous protected areas and Guardians-like programs called Rangers for over 20 years, with extraordinary results. New federal investment for Indigenous-led conservation in Canada would advance Canada's commitments to reconciliation, biodiversity, and climate protection. They can also make a vital contribution to Canada's economic recovery by creating immediate jobs in Indigenous communities and regions from coast to coast to coast. At the same time, long-term federal investment should be paired with new economic tools to support Indigenous-led conservation and stewardship over time. This includes conservation finance and vehicles, public-private partnerships, and support for new carbon markets that can incentivize and support Indigenous protected and conserved areas. For example, many Indigenous protected and conserved areas will be created in the Boreal, home to some of the largest carbon deposits on the planet. Finding ways to value and generate ongoing revenue from the protection of these carbon stores would be critical to securing long-term management and conservation of these areas. I have seen firsthand how Indigenous-led conservation can help create new future. In Tlusogé, we have signed agreements with the governments of Canada and the government of Northwest Territories to protect the Saidinanyena Indigenous protected areas. Also, it's also a national park reserve in the territorial protected and conserved areas. 3 levels of government working together to create this massive protected area. We have hired Indigenous Guardians this year alone, and we've invested over $500,000 in regional businesses to buy boats, snowmobiles, and research equipment. We've been winterized in a newly purchased fishing lodge and look forward to welcoming the visitors when the pandemic is over. Earlier this year, our community's work was recognized by the United Nations Development Program prestigious Equator Prize, the first in Canada. And this was done because of our partnership and relationships around building a positive outcome for Saidinanyena in the region. Support for Indigenous-led conservation transcends political parties. A 2017 report by the Standing Committee on the Environment unanimously supported Indigenous Guardians and greater partnership with Indigenous people in nature conservation. And Canadians agree. Poll after poll demonstrates strong commitment to conserving nature and to doing it together. And so today, I encourage you to join us in building momentum and supporting this vital work as part of a new future for our country and the world. Masicho.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Nita, and congratulations on the award. And also thank you for the submission earlier. Turning to the National Association of Friendship Centers, Mr. Shepard and Ms. Forsma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, committee. I'm Christopher Shepard, president of the National Association of Friendship Centers. And I want to recognize that I'm joining you today from Treaty 6 in Saskatoon and the homeland of the Métis. And I'm thankful for the welcome that I've received while being a visitor here in Saskatchewan. I'm joined, as usual, by my National Executive Director, Jocelyn Formsma. We want to thank you again for the invitation to appear before you, and we are grateful as we know there are many demands on your time and attention, and as usual, you are working late. We have already provided our pre-budget submission for 2020 in advance of federal budget 2020-2021. We have also provided a briefing note that we have drafted in partnership with other federated charities and nonprofits calling for sector support for human and community services. Due to our previous testimony to this committee, you are already aware that the NAFC represents over 100 local friendship centers and provincial and territorial associations from coast to coast to coast. Friendship centers are urban Indigenous community hubs that are owned and operated by Indigenous people and provide a wide range of wraparound community supports through programs and services for every age and demographic of people. Collectively, we are one of the largest and most comprehensive service delivery networks in Canada. In 2019, 93 friendship centers served approximately 1.4 million First Nations, Inuit, Métis, and non-Indigenous people across over 1,200 programs in 238 buildings and employing over 2,700 staff. The current funding for urban programming for Indigenous people will sunset in March 2022, with some predictions that the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and aftermath lasting for the next 2 years. Friendship centers need some assurance that UPIP will continue with enhancements and an updated program design that will be sure to meet the needs of urban Indigenous communities in light of new realities that we cannot yet foresee. In our pre-budget submission, we have focused on the much needed investments in the Friendship Center network across Canada. UPIP renewal with enhancements, investment in Indigenous community-owned infrastructure, children, youth, and family programming, and engagement on a national urban Indigenous health framework. In addition, we have also joined the YMCA, YWCA, United Way, Boys and Girls Club, and Big Brothers and Big Sisters Canada in a call for a federal community services COVID-19 relief fund to support critical human and community services, and to implement a philanthropic match program. The Friendship Center network across Canada is a remedy to challenges that lie ahead. Our structure creates layers of accountability for the work we do and the resources that we invest in the communities that we serve. Our network is highly effective, agile, and competent at responding to community needs and sharing information amongst each other and our partners. Our results are impressive for the amounts that we currently receive, and imagine what we could do with the flexibility and appropriate financial support. As we mentioned in our last appearance, we encourage the federal government to look to us as an answer to the question of how we can better equip Indigenous people living in urban settings. Properly equipping and resourcing friendship centers now, and including friendship centers in response and recovery strategies, is but one way to care for and invest in the viability of our communities and economies across Canada. The NAFC has offered and continues to offer its perspectives, expertise, and knowledge of urban Indigenous communities and community members to inform the federal government and guide effective remedies both now and as we continue on this journey. We look forward to being a part of this ongoing conversation and the questions that you might have today.
Thank you very much. Before I turn to Ms. Thiessen, heads up for the first round of questions, and we'll have to cut it back to 5 minutes. Ms. Jensen, you'll have the first 5. Ms. Koutrakis, you'll have the next. Then turning to Ms. Thiessen with Unifor. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. It's very nice to be here this afternoon, and I really appreciate the opportunity to provide input into the 2021 budget consultations. Unifor is Canada's largest private sector union. We represent 315,000 members in nearly every sector of the economy and in every province. So we have lots of recommendations. My name is Kaylee Thiessen. I work in the research department at Unifor. Our organization has spent a tremendous amount of time enacting solutions to the challenges and the opportunities presented by COVID-19, both in terms of protecting the public health and the health of our members, and also protecting or enhancing their economic security. If there is one overarching message based on these experiences that we've had this year, it is this: do not miss the opportunity to build back to a better economy than we had before. There were many crises that were already in existence, and we need to fix them. The economy before couldn't locate PPE for workers and businesses when it was needed most. That economy refused to provide paid sick days or sufficient time off the job, even though resources to do so were readily available. Our most essential workers were and still are barely earning enough to get by, and basic social services like prescription drugs and childcare were and still are inaccessible to many people. Yes, before the pandemic, Canada was experiencing record-setting low unemployment prior to the pandemic, and real wage growth had finally started to take off. But those statistics took nearly 10 years to arrive after the 2008-2009 recession. We know that focused government action can reduce the lag time between when an economic recovery technically arrives and when it is actually experienced by workers and families on the ground. Government action can also shorten the time it takes to return to the trajectory we were on before the pandemic, ensure full utilization of productive capacity, and put the right policies in place to ensure workers are experiencing healthy working conditions and living wages as a minimum. With the arrival of the vaccine, the end of the pandemic is now in sight, still some way off, but in sight. With that comes the hard work of recovering and rebuilding. Unifor recommends an economic stimulus package big enough and bold enough to put people back to work, build racial and economic justice, because we know that economic recovery is not achieved if we continue to leave people out of prosperity. So our recommendations are this, and you can see them in the brief that we prepared back in August. Redesign income security system with a focus on permanent EI reform and a federal minimum wage that is at least $15. Grow the economy through green jobs and decarbonization, and that includes a national auto strategy, charging infrastructure, targeted support for the energy sector as we march towards net zero targets and continue to meet our current energy needs. We need to solidify Canada's ability to make and create things at home through strategies to rebuild industrial capacity, expand the definition of critical infrastructure to acknowledge the actual outsized importance that care work has in building the foundation for our economic prosperity. And then once we change the definition, we have to build the infrastructure. It's a very important piece. So we're talking about a universal pharmacare plan, universal childcare system, and the drinking water advisors and advisories in Indigenous communities, build Made in Canada public transit. The list is long, it's in our brief. And then finally, government is currently designing additional means to ensure financial support for SMEs and large corporations, while restrictions on travel, going out, shopping are still in place. Our members working in hospitality, air transportation, aerospace, tourism, they need those programs now. And when they're put in place, we need to make sure that all of that support comes with strong and enforceable conditions that protect and promote the public interest, including good jobs and environmental sustainability. All of that accomplishes three important goals. One, it creates more jobs, putting people back to work and may have to transition people from one industry before the pandemic to another after. Two, it ensures that the quality of work in Canada is substantially enhanced. And three, it builds a stronger foundation on which we can build economic prosperity for everyone. And finally, I want to address the deficit. The last time the government spent this much money was during World War II. That extraordinary spending actually went on for 4 years. So for 4 years, the government spent between 18 and 23% of GDP. It was the right thing to do then. It's the right thing to do now. The economy didn't collapse with prudent effort put into actually going to war, and then prudent management afterwards. The country saw an era of substantial prosperity, and the same is possible in the present. What we know about the deficit today, the deficit to GDP ratio will reach between 15 and 16%. That's high, but it's not unprecedented. In the following years, that ratio will shrink and return to a normalized level. That's a prudent plan, in my opinion. Current spending has pushed the debt to GDP ratio up substantially. It's likely to reach about 50% in the next few years and decline thereafter. Again, this is something to constantly monitor, but at this point, we can see that the size of that ratio is not something that will collapse our economy or even put at risk our country's ability to borrow. Canada was in a relatively strong fiscal position before the crisis and continues to be in a strong position today. So, in conclusion, do not let the opportunity to build a better economy go to waste. Unifor is asking that you take the appropriate steps right now to make sure the vision that so many of us have for an even better version of Canada can be realized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kaylee, and thank you all for the submissions that you submitted in August. And if you have anything else you want to add, drop a note to the clerk. So we'll go to our rounds of questions. Ms. Jensen, you're first up, and we'll have to go, I'm sorry, to a 5-minute round.
Yes, thank you. I would like to actually direct my questions to Jocelyn, maybe Stephen, I'm not sure, but thank you so much for the brief you all provided. I'd like to first share with you that I am the very proud foster sister of Shailene Lakey, who's Blackfoot from the Siksika Nation. So the urban Indigenous issues that she's been putting out over the years are close to my heart. Shailene's an amazing Indigenous woman who I truly admire, and she's built herself a successful career working with children in care. And she's been advocating for Indigenous youth who consistently fall through the cracks. So this summer, we managed to catch up over lunch, and she talked passionately about the serious inequity facing urban Indigenous youth in particular. So following that lunch, I met with Joanne Mills, Executive Director of the Fraser Regional Aboriginal Friendship Centre. And I can tell you, I left that meeting with an incredible respect for Joanne, who has a deep love for the youth in her care. And I just like to quote from an email she sent me recently. She says, I'm the Executive Director of the Fraser Regional Aboriginal Friendship Centre Association in Surrey. I am Cree from Fisher River First Nation in Manitoba and consider myself a displaced urban Indigenous woman. There are 8,000 kids in care for whom $333 million was spent last year. That's $41,250 per child. Over 50% of those children are Indigenous. However, Surrey numbers show the shocking problem we're facing. In Surrey, urban Indigenous services only received $625 per person. We have the highest urban child poverty rate. We comprise 40% of the homeless population in spite of being less than 3% of the total population. We are 40% of the children in care. We are overrepresented in youth homeless data and corrections data. We are less likely to have a doctor or primary health care provider. We are less likely to graduate. We are overrepresented in the opioid mortality rates, particularly in Wally. And our vulnerable youth are targets for human trafficking and homicide, with Surrey being a hub. Only a fraction of dedicated funding is provided to Indigenous agencies or service providers. The majority of funding goes to non-Indigenous services or is delivered by non-Indigenous agencies who do not understand the issues or remedies. Redirecting this funding to culturally appropriate service providers would demonstrate real commitment to breaking these cycles. So would Ms. Vormsma like to speak further to the disaster we are facing, especially in my riding, which has the fastest growing urban Indigenous community in the province and for whom mental health issues are a top priority, if we don't make changes to the broken structure?
Okay, who wants to start?
I can
go ahead.
I can jump in since
go ahead, Ms. Vormsma.
Thank you. Well, I think you just spoke right to my heart on that one. Both President Shepherd and I are we're alumni of our own National Youth Council for Friendship Centers. And so we were mentored and we were developed through the Friendship Center movement. And up until about 2016, we actually had a national youth program, which was the Cultural Connections for Aboriginal Youth. And prior to that was the Urban Multipurpose Aboriginal Youth Centers, or we called it UMAYC for short. These programs had profound effect on Indigenous young people across the country, and many of the colleagues that I've met when we were young people in our early 20s are now leaders in national Indigenous organizations and banks and companies, and they've started their own. We're all over the place, and we're still in contact with each other. Indigenous young people are the fastest growing population in Canada. We know that, and we know that more than half of the Indigenous population across the country is under the age of 25. And we have no national Indigenous childcare or children's framework or strategy, and we have no national youth strategy. To me, those are two major things in our budget submission. We've housed our request under the Children, Youth, and Family Programming because we know how important it is to maintain cultural connections, to maintain family connections, to create new community connections for those urban Indigenous children. And Friendship Centers do so much for young people in care. And even during the pandemic, we've heard of Friendship Centers who were finding young people who were aging out of care, finding them safer homes that weren't overcrowded, making sure that they had connections to employment and could come to the center to apply for their CERB and had support. So I would definitely agree. And we're also working on an anti-Indigenous racism and healthcare initiative. We just started just this past month. So and we don't know how things are going to roll out with urban Indigenous young people as C92 is developing and jurisdictions are developing within First Nations, Métis, Inuit governments. And so we've been wanting to be involved in those conversations. So what I would say is it's on our radar. Youth engagement, children and youth are huge areas of interest and passion for us at the Friendship Centers, and hence why we are asking for investments in children and youth programming as part of our budget ask.
We are going to have to, I'll let you, can you do, take 30 seconds there, Mr. Nite?
Thank you. I think the root causes of why we see Indigenous people flock into regional centers in every province and region of the country is the fact of it's because of the assimilation policy and the impacts of those on our communities and regions. The Indigenous Leadership Initiative and the budget we asked for is to strengthen the communities and regions, creating employment and creating certainty for investment, as previous speakers in the last panel spoke about. It's Indigenous leadership and land use planning, working with our provincial government and industry to determine best places to protect for biodiversity and conservation purposes, ensuring that the economic grounds are open for exploration and development and create certainty of investment. These are the types of responsibilities Indigenous governments have in every community in the country. We need to support them in creating the capacity so that kids are not leaving town and connections are made for those that are already in the regional centers and displaced environments so that they can connect back to their home communities and territories. Land is healing.
Thank you very much. We will have to end that round there. Ms. Koutrakis, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all our witnesses for your very heartfelt and interesting presentations this afternoon. My first question is to Mr. Arango. Nice to see you again, Mr. Arango, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
As you mentioned, one of the recommendations and your comments were on the youth vaping epidemic in our country. There has been an increase of over 100% in the use of vaping among older teens in Canada between 2017 and 2019. Vaping products damage developing brains, and youth vaping can increase the odds of tobacco smoking. In your pre-budget submission, you call on the federal government to introduce a 20% tax on vaping products. There are some provinces that have already begun levying taxes on these products, and others are studying the possibility. I'm curious to know, do we have any data on how these taxes have affected the sale of vaping products, specifically towards young people?
Well, what we do know certainly is that taxes and price impacts behavior for all types of different behaviors. So for example, taxation is actually one of the strongest, most powerful tools that we have at our disposal to address tobacco smoking. And early results to date indicate that it's also useful with vaping. The reality is that it doesn't matter what product it is. If you put a high enough tax on any product, you will curtail behavior. It's just a basic part of economic theory. Price has an impact on behavior. And if we put sufficient taxes on vaping products, you will definitely 100% see reductions in vaping consumption.
Should we be considering other measures like regulatory measures to prevent the youth from smoking vape products?
Absolutely. So taxation on itself won't do the trick. It's a very important tool, but there are other things that have to be done. To date, the federal government has put health warning labels, or has introduced regulations to put health warning labels and restrict the marketing of vaping products. These are very important things. However, there are two other regulatory pieces that are really critical as well, and that is restrictions on flavors that are used in vape products. So there's a number of provinces that have acted to implement bans on flavors. This is very important. And the other thing is to limit the amount of nicotine in vape products. So once again, a number of provinces have acted in this area. The European Union has acted, and they've put a limit of 20 milligrams of nicotine in vape products. And that's a standard that many jurisdictions across the world are following. And we're hoping that Health Canada will introduce regulations to limit the amount of nicotine in vape products, as the European Union has done.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, do I have time for one more question?
You got time for one more question.
Okay, so my next question is to Ms. Thiessen. I'm an advocate for the Universal Basic Income, or the Guaranteed Livable Income Program in Canada. I'm always considering different perspectives and opinions on what an income support program would look like in practice. And I'd like to hear your comments on, and if you can outline Unifor's vision for an income security system that adequately supports families and addresses poverty in Canada.
Ooh.
That's a big one to do in 2 minutes.
I can do some of it in 2 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so people in Canada receive income in multiple ways. And income security supports are delivered in multiple ways. Each of those programs serves a different purpose. None of them should be abandoned. Many of them should be improved substantially. We saw with the implementation of CERB, kind of a recognition that $2,000 a month might be a kind of bare minimum in order to get people through a short-term crisis in their own personal life, and many people were going through it at the same time. But $2,000 a month was a choice that was made that seems to address that fact. So are there programs that need to be improved to meet that basic level? Yes. Including looking at social assistance across the country, which is provincial jurisdiction, but then also employment reform, employment insurance reform, and making sure that folks who are unemployed actually can access employment insurance, and then also make sure that the replacement rate is high enough and the income is high enough to support them through a crisis. In addition to that, we would look to a $15 or higher minimum wage so that people who are working full-time and people who are working part-time can meet their basic needs, which right now we're seeing our members across the country in low-wage jobs are just unable to do that. And part of it is because the minimum wage is very low, and the other part is that they're working part-time in precarious jobs, maybe don't have access to health insurance and other things. So then we bring in all of the other supports that come into play, like universal childcare, universal pharmacare, so that people, that addresses the affordability issue, and instead of coming out of pocket, it's coming out of us collectively through our taxes. Those are a few things where I would start.
Thank you very much, Kaylee. Turning then to Mr. St. Marie for 5 minutes, followed by Mr. Julian. Gabriel?
Thank you very much, Wayne. I'd like to say hello to all of the witnesses and thank them for the very interesting presentation. I have a little time, so I'll begin with Ms. Thiessen. With respect to the aerospatial sector, you have members in uniform that work in the aerospace sector, and since the spring, we're talking about 4,000 jobs that have been lost. Other countries have put in places to support the sector. This week, the minister said that he was working on a plan to help the aerospace sector, and we're hoping that this will be included in the recovery plan in the next budget. What would your ask be in order to support the aerospace sector?
Well, we have two asks many asks, but with these two industries that are related to air transportation, the air transportation sector and the aerospace sector. In the air transportation sector, we're looking for a targeted air transportation recovery plan and a long-term plan that looks at making sure we're creating decent work for people who are working in the sector, as well as looking at implementing some rapid testing and other measures to potentially reduce quarantine when we know that folks who are traveling are not infected with the coronavirus. We have a whole host of recommendations on that I would be very happy to send all of you. It's a 6-page plan. And then just this afternoon, I actually met with our aerospace industry council to talk about our recommendations for how to move forward. We're seeing that the longer flights or airplanes are downed, then the aerospace sector actually is beginning to see this lagged sort of effect in their own recession. Mostly that's happening in the commercial industry, but it is some military as well. So we'd like to see a focus on an investment in fostering research and development in high-tech industries. We'd like to see a focus on buying Canadian, and this actually is the case for public transit as well, but buying Canadian to make sure that when the Government of Canada purchases aircraft for multiple uses, including search and rescue, that those aircraft are made in Canada. De Havilland would be a great example of some of those. And then in addition to that, looking for an aerospace industrial strategy so that we can look at where we are now and then build towards a vision for the future that includes, again, decent work and the high-tech industry that Canada has been fostering for years.
Ms. Thiessen, if I could get you to just pull your mic up a little bit. Yeah, try that. Good. Go ahead, Gabriel.
Thank you very much for your answer, Ms. Thiessen. It's important to have a policy, an industrial policy for the aerospace sector. In the time that I have left, I'd like to ask a question of the National Association of Friendship Center. You do great work during normal times and especially during this pandemic. How are things happening? There's a Friendship Center in my riding, and at every holiday period, they gather people together. They give out Christmas baskets. And what's the morale like for the people that are working in friendship centers during this holiday season?
And maybe I'll just start quickly and then I'll hand it over to Chris if he wants to add anything in. Just a note that we've done some information collection from our centers, and we've actually hired more staff on than we have laid off. So we've maintained our level of employment, and we've actually hired more people over the pandemic, and our staff retention rate has been quite high, which I think is notable in these times that we've actually been hiring more people than laying them off. I would say overall people are tired. The funding that we've received through the Indigenous Community Support Fund has been really helpful, but the funding is set to end March 31st, 2021. And so now we're working with Indigenous services to ensure that that fund can extend so that when people show up on our doorsteps on April 1, that we don't have to turn them away because the funding is run out or we have to give it back or whatever we decide needs to be done. In our proposals and in our submissions to this committee, we've also identified a post-COVID recovery period. And so what we've done is we think that by having predictable and sustainable enhancements to the UPIP, the Program for Indigenous Peoples, that we can be part of the Build Back Better, but it really relies on those enhancements to the program as it is, including the community-owned infrastructure, which is part of our submission. And I think the centers are doing as well as we could expect them to. People are tired, and right now just need to know that the help that we've received is going to continue, and that we don't have to turn people away come the new fiscal year. I don't know, Chris, if you wanted to add anything on that.
We are going to have to
Merci
run
beaucoup.
at our stop.
Thank you very much.
To Mr. Julian, and after that, we hopefully, if we can get the time, we're starting to jam another committee. Hopefully, we'll start with Mr. Kelly and Mr. Falk on a split. Mr. Julian, 5 minutes.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks to all our witnesses. I'm going to try to endeavor to get through all four because you have all brought a lot of very important things to bear. So I'd ask you to be relatively brief, 45 to 50 seconds. And I'll start with Ms. Thiessen. Thank you very much for being so eloquent about the importance of social infrastructure, pharmacare, childcare. We know every buck we spend on childcare, we get $6 back in economic stimulus. Isn't it important as well to take care of the revenue side? I'm thinking of wealth tax and excess profits tax like we had in the Second World War that you referenced. Cracking down on overseas tax havens that cost us $25 billion a year, and making the big web giant companies actually pay corporate income tax so that we have the wherewithal to make these investments and to build back better, as you stated so eloquently.
Yes, absolutely. I'll read right from our brief. Rebuild Canada's fiscal capacity. Enhance Canada's fiscal capacity through a number of tax changes, including implementing a wealth tax, closing tax loopholes, clamping down on tax havens, and amending the Income Tax Act so that Canadian ad buys of American digital media are no longer tax deductible.
Thank you very much, and thanks to Unifor and all of its activists for driving a really important recovery that will keep everybody together and won't leave anybody behind. Mr. Naita, you talked very eloquently as well about the Indigenous Leadership Initiative. I've seen firsthand in Haida Gwaii how Indigenous Guardians have been able to conserve important natural space that also has a fundamental sacred value. You've talked about $1.5 billion for Indigenous-led conservation and another $835 million, I believe you mentioned. How many First Nations community would be able to benefit from this type of investment?
Well, if Canada is going to reach its international commitments of reaching 30%, that pretty much means we have to double the size of our protected areas across the country. I would liken that to a quantum of land the size of Manitoba.
Point d'ordre, Monsieur le Président. L'interprète.
The interpreter is saying that the quality of the sound makes it difficult to interpret.
Mr. Naita, if you could just hold your mic fairly close there again to make it clear.
I'm sorry to the interpreters. If Canada is going to reach its commitment to protect 30% of the country, we're at about 15% now protected areas. We need to double that, and that's a quantum of land the size of Manitoba. So I would say every Indigenous community in this country should be able to protect their special places, which are usually high biodiverse areas. And every one of them can create an economy around that supports the local economy and work towards the reconciliation agenda that Canada has.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shepherd, Ms. Vormsma. You talked about the next couple of years, but we know from past pandemics, like the Spanish flu, that it had a particular impact on lower income people, poor, more marginalized populations that lasted over a decade. Are you worried that the federal government is starting to cut back already in program expenditures at a time when we actually need to be looking over the next 10 years, expanding, providing the supports, as Ms. Thiessen talked about, and ensuring that nobody is left behind?
Yes, I think a lot's in our submission, but what I will say is there's always this jurisdictional gap between urban and on reserve Inuit in the north. Anybody who's not sort of in Métis settlement are covered by a Métis government as well. So each level of government tends to think it's the other level of government's job to kind of take care of urban Indigenous. So federal, especially during the pandemic, we had so many conversations that said, well, for urban isn't it the province's job? And then we had our network, directly talking to the provinces, and they were saying, well, you're the federal government's job. So we really need to have a national conversation about how we're going to make sure that nobody falls through the gaps, and each level is assuming that the other level of government is taking care of this population. I just want to ask if Chris has anything to add on that, but that's my main point.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've just got one question left, so I'm going to have to thank you very much. Yeah, I'll move on to Mr. Arango. You talked very eloquently about pharmacare. There's a historic vote. This will be the first vote on legislation ever in Canada on pharmacare. It's the NDP Bill C-213 in February, which puts in place the legal framework around pharmacare, including universality, publicly administered, portability, accessibility, comprehensiveness. Is the Heart and Stroke Foundation supporting that legislation so that we can put in place the legal framework that allows us to bring in national universal pharmacare?
So in terms of the policy, yes, we support. I have to be careful because CRA says I can't be partisan and endorse a particular bill, et cetera. But in terms of the policy that's being promoted through that bill, absolutely, we support that. It's important to put the appropriate legal parameters in place so that this can be done. We're absolutely supportive of anything and everything that moves pharmacare forward in an expeditious fashion. And as I mentioned earlier in my testimony, one of the really first critical steps, in addition to establishing this legal parameter, is allocation of dollars in the next federal budget. We need to have some money in there so that we can allow those 2 or 3 provinces, whoever are keen to get out the gate on this first, to actually implement. So that's a really critical step, in addition to the legal parameters, having some money in the budget.
Okay, Mandy, we'll have to end it there. Thank you, Mr. Julian. We'll go. We've been given authority to go with 2 5-minute blocks before we get kicked off the line. So we'll start on a split with Mr. Kelly and Mr. Falk, and we'll conclude with Mr. McLeod. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. My question is to Ms. Thiessen. I heard in your presentation you spoke about many broad economic goals, but one of them was ensuring that Canada's current energy needs are met, and also protecting the jobs of energy workers. So, in the previous panel, in response to one of my colleagues' questions, the Canadian Oil Well Drillers Association pointed out that under this government's regulatory regime, no company would likely ever propose a large energy project with any expectation of success. So he was referring to pipelines and oil sands projects and things like that. Now, these projects are typically built by unionized workers. They use steel that is manufactured by unionized workers. They tend on completion to provide some of the highest paying jobs out there. And so I wondered if you could comment on any concern you have around the government's policies that are actually driving investment and the jobs that go with them, which are in many cases unionized jobs, out of the country.
Ms. Thiessen.
Another very big question. We do have folks who are experts on the energy industry and the specific policies of this government, previous governments. What I will say is the prize for us is that people have good jobs, and those good jobs come in many different forms. We are in many different industries, and we're calling for an industrial support package for the energy sector so that we can continue to meet the energy needs that Canada currently has, and also recognize that we're moving towards some net zero targets. Those are in place. We support those targets. And as we're moving through that, we need to make sure that people who work in the energy industry are able to access training, access the same quality or higher quality jobs than are available, and move towards that. And then, looking at all of the different ways we can produce energy, making sure that investments are made there as well.
Mr. Kelly, or I guess
Mr.
you're
Falk,
at your to it, Mr. Falk.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Easter and Mr. Kelly, for this time. I'd like to direct my question to Mr. Rangel. In both your brief and your presentation, you mentioned how important the charitable sector is to your organization and how reliant you are on charitable donations. Several years ago, I presented a private members bill that would have given the same favorable treatment to a charitable donation as a political donation receives, and it didn't get the support of the House at that time. But you've indicated how important it is. Can you tell us a little bit of how you think the government could model a charitable donation scheme that would really complement your association?
For sure. So one thing we have mentioned in our brief is that we need direct support in addition to incentivizing charitable giving. So I've talked a little bit in my speech about that, about the direct subsidies that we need. But in terms of incentivizing charitable giving, there are many different ways to do it. You mentioned a very important way, which is to treat a charitable donation like a political donation. That would give a significantly better tax credit to donors. There's also many other different ways, including exempting capital gains tax on donation of private shares in real estate to charities. There's also matching of fundraising from the government could match fundraising from the charities, and that's one way to incentivize giving as well. So if the government says we'll give one match every dollar that you give to a charity, that's another way to do it. There's
kind of similar to a little bit of our foreign aid schemes.
Yes. So there's about 6 or 7 different ways, and the bottom line is, any form of incentivizing giving is something that we deeply appreciate, in addition to direct subsidies. So yes, absolutely.
Right, and you've already mentioned there's presently a private members bill on the floor that would exactly address the issue of donating privately held shares of stocks to charity. Can you tell us roughly what percentage of your income is received from the charitable sector?
Sorry, I'm sure I quite understand the question. If you could just rephrase it, perhaps.
Could you tell the committee what percentage?
So do you mean? Oh, I think I know what you mean. What percent of our donations come from donors, individual donors?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So roughly 95% of our revenues come from Canadians who donate, say, $10, $20. So roughly 95%. The other 5% would be either government or corporate donations. But so those really are a small part. It's really the individual donor, the individual Canadian, that we rely on in a big way.
Okay, we are going to have to end it there. Thank you. Thank you all three. Mr. McLeod, you will get to wrap it up with a 5-minute round. Mr. McLeod.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the presenters here today. I got to be quick because I don't have a lot of time, so I'll just jump right in it. Mr. Nita, thank you for your presentation. I'm very familiar with the Indigenous Guardians program. I was very excited to see what's going on with the Taitananene Parks agreement. Lots of good stuff happening. If it was up to me, there'd be an Indigenous Guardian program, an Aboriginal Head Start program, and a Friendship Center in every one of our Indigenous communities. That would really help us a lot and go a long ways. So it's clear that the Indigenous Guardians program and the Indigenous Protected Conservation Areas are key to addressing Canada reconciliation, and I think you said that, and also helps us with our environmental goals. Could you also speak to the socio-economic benefits for Indigenous people that these programs provide?
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. Thank you for that question. We know, based on studies here in the Northwest Territories and also in Australia, with the example of the Australian Rangers program and Indigenous protected areas over there, for every tax dollars that's invested in these programs, there's a savings of up to $3 to the Canadian tax base. Savings in other areas of expenditures. There's reduced participation by Indigenous peoples in the criminal system, the justice system, the health system, the social services system, the public housing system. They start contributing in the tax base to the tax base of the country. So and also on the reconciliation side, the assimilation policies was focused on removing Indigenous peoples from the land.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Can I get Steve to hold his mic up? It's hard to make out.
Okay. Yes, Steve, just bring your mic up a little bit again. I didn't get a complaint from the translators, but if you could. Yeah, you're okay now. Go ahead.
The Indigenous Leadership Initiative support with Indigenous nations across the country to build Indigenous protected and conserved areas is a great opportunity for reconciliation. We're talking about shared relationships, shared authority in many cases, Indigenous leadership in other cases. All of these is in the spirit of reconciliation. There's employment opportunities created, business opportunities created through tourism. Indigenous tourism is the largest growing industry. It's a $2 billion industry globally and growing. And in Canada and globally, we are faced with the climate change and the impacts of climate change. In Canada, we hold a great deal of responsibility to the global community just because of the size of our country. And the boreal forest alone holds 12% of global storehouse of carbon storehouses. And they're asking us to protect it. And that's a big chunk of land.
Okay, I want to get one more question in, Steve. So I want to jump over to the Friendship Centers, and I want to direct this question to Chris Shepard because he's hadn't had a chance to respond to any questions. I've been watching over the years, and I've been involved with the Friendship Centers, and I know about the start-stop. I know the hit and miss funding allocations that have been going on for years. Can you, Chris, tell us and speak to how critical it is for the Friendship Centers to have substantial long-term funding commitments from the federal government in order to have the Indigenous communities fully participating in Canada's COVID recovery?
Mr. Shepard.
Thank you. I'll start by saying when I started coming to these committees, Friendship Centers had a permanent program. We had a youth program. We had employment and training programs. And it was before I was even 30 years old. Now we have none of those things. And so I think at least a program that has a 10-year cycle, so we don't have to continually start preparing for the next funding cycle before 5 years, and investment in infrastructure and young people. I'll keep talking if I can keep going.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Just to finish your point there, Mr. Shepard, and then we will have to end.
I think in my final comment that I keep saying at every committee is the government of Canada needs to find ways to recognize that the majority of Indigenous people live in urban communities, and the proportion of funding that goes to those communities is minuscule when you look at the total envelopes. And so at some point we have to start providing the resource to match the need and where people actually are in policy and program.
Okay, thank you for that. And we are definitely over our time. Just for committee members, the notice has went out for tomorrow's meeting, and although we've invited witnesses for next Monday and maybe even Tuesday, we still don't know if we're going to get an agreement in the House where the committee will be allowed to meet virtually next week. So that's just for your information. We'll see where it goes with the House leadership of all parties, I guess. For the witnesses, look, thank you very much for, I know it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to prepare the submissions that you forward to us by mid-August. We did have 793 submissions this year. They will be all taken into consideration. The committee members will, and the analysts will go through them and pull what we can out. And I also want to sincerely thank you for, first of all, presenting us with the briefs and for coming and answering our questions today. It's been an interesting afternoon. With that, thank you again. and the meeting's adjourned. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.